Welcome to Zephyr's Garage. I'm Randy, and in this video we're going to talk about what it's been like to own this Thunderbird Super Coupe for the past year. We bought this car in 2024 in October. And so this is the end of September. We're coming up on to owning it for the past year. And we've put a few miles on the car. It's not a daily driver. We've put almost 1,000 miles on the car in the past year. We've fixed a few things and thankfully nothing's broken on the car. We've made some upgrades to the car. And I want to kind of share my experience with what this car has been like to drive. We've taken it on some longer drives. We haven't taken any road trips or anything, but I hope to do that at some point. It's really a very enjoyable car to own. I wouldn't call this a muscle car. I mean, it does have a supercharged V6 in it. It doesn't put out a lot of power. It puts out an adequate amount of power. It gets up and goes reasonable. It's very smooth. Very comfortable, and actually comfort is probably the number one thing with this car. These seats and the interior of this car is someplace that you could get in and drive for hours. I think this car would be an excellent road car. So instead of really calling this a muscle car, I'm going to call it a grand touring car. It's really more of a GT car, and that's really fine. I didn't need another muscle car. I have a Mustang. And that car is very quick, very loud, and very eye-catching. This car is a little bit more subtle. I've had a number of people come up to me saying they had one of these cars in the day and they really enjoyed it. And I can understand that because I found this car to be very enjoyable to drive. So what have I had to do to this car over the past year? Really, I had a couple different things that needed to be done. I actually created a list when I bought the car of things that I thought it needed. And of course, then I jumped right in and did something that wasn't on that list. One of the biggest changes I made to this car after I bought it was to swap out the tires and wheels. This car came with 16-inch wheels, 7 inches wide, and 225 60 series tires. And that was the high performance tire for 1989 when this car came out. Later, I don't think they ever upgraded the tires. I think about it. Unfortunately today, there's no longer a performance tire available in that 225 16-inch size. So to get a much more performance size tire for this, I had to upgrade it to 17-inch. These are 17-inch by 8.5-inch wide rims. The tires are 255, 45, 17. So this is almost a 10-inch wide tire. They're on an 8.5-inch wide rim. And to me, this is really the perfect combination for this car. A lot of vehicles today come with 18 and 20-inch size rims and very thin sidewall tires. But for me, that size of a tire does not ride very well. And I wanted to keep a comfortable ride with this car. So having a little bit more sidewall on it made a lot of sense. The other real benefit to these rims is that these center caps are the original Ford center caps that came on the car from the other wheels. I was able to transplant them over to these wheels. They fit perfectly because this is a reproduction of a Ford wheel that came on the 93 Mustang Cobra. So this is really just a really nice setup for the car. I'm really happy with the results of this, but it took a little bit of work to do this, and I'll tell you about that next. This car, it was not a bolt-on situation. The bolt pattern on the wheels was different, and I've got a whole video if you want to take a look at it up here, what it took to put these wheels on. But I had to change the hubs. And in doing so, I kind of underestimated the amount of work that was going to be. I figured I could reuse my existing brakes, and I was not able to do that. So I had to redo the brakes, front and rear on this, new rotors, new pads in the front. I was able to reuse the calipers in the front. New rotor in the back, new pads, and I was able to reuse that caliper too. So that cost me a little bit more money than I thought. And then while doing this, I decided to upgrade the tires to a better quality tire than I was originally looking at. I was really going to cheap out a little bit on the tires, but realistically, you don't want to do that. So I went with Michelin tires on the car, which are, a lot of people in this age of car wouldn't do that, but I really wanted this car to be comfortable and a driver, so these tires made a lot more sense. The rims are 8.5 inches wide, and the tires are about 10 inches wide. And what it really did is it filled these fender wells nicely. So now the tires poke right out to the edge of the fender well and actually slightly beyond when you look at it from the front or the rear, which I think is a huge improvement over how this car looked before. The factory tires and wheels were way too small. So the cost of doing that, like I said, cost me a little bit more. Actually cost me a lot more than what I thought it would. I was expecting to spend about $2,000 to do tires and wheels and a few other pieces that I might need, hubs and whatnot. All said and done, because of the upgrading on the tires, having to do brakes all the way around, I'm into this to about $3,000. So it was a significantly increased amount of money than I thought it was going to be. There was a list of things, and there still is a list of things that needed to be repaired on this car. The biggest one was the air conditioning. This car, the AC was not working when I bought it. It needed a recharge. I attempted that myself for the first time. My first time through this was a total failure. When charging the AC on this car, I destroyed the air conditioner compressor on it because I had to convert the car from R12 to R134 refrigerant. And in doing that, I had to convert the lubrication, the oil that is in it, and I did not put a significant amount of oil into the vehicle to cover this. So that destroyed the compressor, so I had to redo the whole thing, put a new compressor in. I actually had to change out some of the lines and put a new accumulator in it, flush the whole system out, because once the compressor goes, that just contaminates the whole air conditioning system. So I had to flush it through with solvent and clean that all out. But I have to say, since doing all that, recharging it with the 134 refrigerant, this thing blows ice cold really well. So I'm very pleased with that. One of the mods that I was able to do to this car that I was really excited was this license plate, SC Tbird. I was lucky that this combination was still available, and I snagged it up when I registered the car. Oh, by the way, SC stands for supercharged. It's also, this is a Thunderbird SC. When I bought the car, one of the other things that didn't work on it at that time was the radio. And this has the JBL premium sound system. So that included an upgraded radio that has a line out capability, which feeds an amplifier in the trunk, actually two amplifiers, one for the main speakers and a second one for the subwoofer. And none of that worked. It just made static. So basically the radio was not working at the time. And so what I did, because obviously you want a radio, is I first started looking to see, is there anybody out there that repairs these radios? I did a little research, and I found that it's a common issue with this age of radio that the capacitors fail on it over time, and that's usually what takes them out. And there are people out there that repair them. Unfortunately, because this is a Thunderbird, most of the people out there that repair them work on Mustangs, and they do those radios, and they've sourced parts for those radios. Thunderbird radio, the guy that does the Mustangs, he did not want to touch a Thunderbird radio. So I was not able to get this fixed. I was really hoping to get the stock radio fixed and also have it upgraded to Bluetooth so that I could connect my phone into it. And that didn't work out. I haven't given up on that, but I knew that to enjoy the car and to drive it, it needed to have some type of radio. So what I did is I purchased a Blaupunkt radio. And if you haven't heard of Blaupunkt, they are a company out of Germany that make car audio for BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche. They've actually OEM fitment for those cars. Ballplunk had a radio that looked vintage that would fit into this car. And so I picked one out. They actually have multiple models, and they're actually vintage by year. So they have an 80s looking radio, a 90s looking radio. And what they are, they're actually the radios that they sold back then, but they've upgraded them to modern components and functionality. So I went actually with the 90s radio because I thought that looked a little bit more appropriate for what would be in this car. And what's nice about it is it still has where you would think is a tape deck, but in reality, you open up that deck and that's all your input selection. So you can put a SD card in there, a USB thumbnail, or a line in to it. But it also has Bluetooth, which is one of the things I was looking for. So it's really been a nice upgrade as far as the radio is concerned. It's not as perfect as having a vintage radio in it, you know, an actual Ford radio. And at some point, I'm probably going to swap it back to that if I can find one that will work. Again, interchangeability between certain year Mustangs will work on this. So I've been looking at Mustang radios, but the vintage Mustang radios are very expensive. And so is this Ballplunk radio, to be honest with you. It was a very expensive radio. It was $500. I could have spent that on some vintage Mustang radios. Actually, I've seen some vintage Mustang radios going for twice that and even 3 times that amount of money. So that's not been an option for me. I went with a Ballplunk radio. I do feel that I need to upgrade the rest of the audio system because when I changed the radio, I was no longer able to use the subwoofer or the amplifier in the back. So it's bypassed that and it's running directly to the stock speakers. But what I'd like to do is keep it JBL, but buy a new subwoofer and a new amplifier and then new speakers for it and upgrade the whole system to more of a high-powered JBL system that essentially would be more contemporary and newer sounding, but would still have the JBL feel because it is a JBL branded car. It has JBL on the doors by the speakers, and I really like to keep that going for it. So what didn't I do? Like I said, I had a list of things that I thought the car needed, and I'm working my way down it. Thankfully, there's nothing critical on this car that has to be done right away. But there are some things that I would like to do. One of them is a suspension rebuild. The front suspension is very solid. I don't have any creaks or play or anything in it, but I have noticed that the ball joints, the rubber bushings are starting to crack and deteriorate. And I don't think I've got a lot of life in the front suspension, especially maybe not, I probably got some life, but I don't have a lot of miles in it. As I continue to drive the car, I think the front suspension will wear sooner than later. And so I would like to rebuild that. That's probably something I will do next year. I probably do upper and lower ball joints and tie rod ends. And then the same thing in the back, do ball joints on the rear suspension. Get the whole suspension or the whole alignment done on front and rear, which is something that needs, it doesn't pull, but the steering wheel is offset a little bit. And I think there's a little bit too much caster in the rear suspension as it sets right now. So I'd like to get all that straightened out next year. It's not critical that I do it right away because I'm not putting the miles on the car. But it's still something that I've got in mind that I want to do. I also noted that when I bought this car that there's a couple little issues with the interior. The interior is in really great shape. The carpet looks good. There's just a little bit of wear on the driver's seat and the leather. It's mostly the dye is worn on the leather and you can see it. And the rear seat is sun faded from the rear window. So I do know somebody that says that they can come over and dye this and fix that. I've tried to get a hold of him a couple of times and have not been able to coordinate a time when he can come and do that. Hopefully I'll get that done this year. If not, it will be an item for next year. I also need to get a new spare tire for the car. I've changed the bolt pattern on all the wheels. Now the original spare tire will no longer fit. So that's on the list of things I've got to do on the car. There are probably a few quirky things that need to be fixed. And this is all in just trying to get the car as perfect as I can. One of the things I've noticed is the speedometer is off. Now these wheels and tires are exactly the same size as the factory tires and wheels were, but I've noticed the speedometer is 5 miles per hour off when I'm driving at 60 to 70 miles per hour. It's running a little slow. Great, I won't get a speeding ticket, but I feel like the old guy driving down the highway, you know, everyone's passing me. So I'd like to get that fixed. This isn't automatic, and so I think there's an opportunity to find either a different speedometer gear, or there may be something that you can tune the speedometer readings with. So I'm going to look into that for this car. Again, a lot of the stuff I'm looking at are designed around Mustangs because they're more popular, but they use the same components, so I can cross over and use them on this car. Things I'd like to do to it that maybe are more optional, and here's one maybe you guys can tell me. I've debated about lowering the car. When I have the suspension all apart, is it worth putting in lowered springs and dropping the ride height of the car about an inch? Now aesthetically, you can tell there's a fair amount of room, so taking an inch out of this from the top of the fender well would make sense, because there's about 2 inches there, or drop the car down to about an inch over the fender, you know, under the fender. Same thing in the rear. My concern is I love the way this car rides. And if I change the springs, I know that's going to affect the ride. It's going to make it a lot firmer and a lot less comfortable. And I'm not sure I want to do that. So it's on the list. Leave a comment and let me know. Would you change the springs on the car, or would you leave them alone? Love to hear from you guys. I really don't want to do any modifications to the motor. I'd like to leave it as stock as possible. And the reason is, I believe that Ford's done a lot of engineering to make sure that this car has very good durability with the supercharger. Now they do sell underdrive pulleys on this, and you can change that and get more horsepower that way. I mean, some people build these motors up and drag race them. My experience is the more you modify an engine, the less durability it's going to have. You got to be very careful what you change on a motor to keep the durability there. And I don't want to change that on this car. So I have done a few things as far as maintenance on the car. I've replaced all the belts on the car, which was a bigger deal than I thought it should be, because unfortunately the lower radiator hose goes between the belt and the power steering pump. And so you have to take the lower radiator hose off the car to get the belt off. But I replaced all 3 belts on the car. I've also changed the air filter. And I wanted to put a K&N type air filter on it, one that's reusable, that has better flow. K&N no longer sells air filters for this car. It's old enough. And that's one of the things I keep finding, is that there used to be a lot of performance parts available for this car, but because of the age and the demand for them has gone down considerably, it's harder and harder to find them, so you have to be a little bit more creative. But on eBay, I did find a company that sold a K&N style filter, so I ordered it. It was only $20. I get it, I popped the filter out, it had a K&N filter in it. I did use the one I ordered on eBay because I thought it actually looked like it was a little better filtration, but I kept the K&N filter because those things last forever. I probably will do a full tune-up on the car at some point, change the spark plugs, possibly change out the wires. There's still, the wires I know are original. My guess is the spark plugs are original too. Car only has 40,000 miles. It runs great, so it's not a thing I need to do right away. And from everything I've read, changing the spark plugs on this is a major pain. If you look under the engine compartment on this car, you will notice that everything is on top of the engine with the supercharger and all the intakes and air tubes and such that it has to get air routed through the supercharger and into the motor, through the intercooler. It really makes it hard to get at things. It actually would have been easier to change the spark plugs, at least on the right side of the engine, when I had the air conditioner off, because that blocks access to those spark plugs. But It's on the list of things I want to do at some point. I haven't done it. I did do an oil change in the car. The oil looked great. The car is completely dry underneath. It doesn't have any oil leaks either in the engine or the transmission or any coolant leaks, so it's good that way. But it did have a little bit of an issue with the valve covers leaking. Again, very difficult to get at the valve covers. I would suspect that would be an all-day job because you'd have to remove so much off the top of the engine to get to the valve covers that luckily I was able to get in there with an extension and snug up the bolts along the lower side of the valve cover on the exhaust side that were leaking. And it seems to have stopped. I was noticing the leak because I was seeing a little bit of smoke come up from under the hood when the vehicle sat after running. And since then, it hasn't done that. So I feel good about that. And I also took the opportunity of when I had the air conditioner off to check that valve cover and make sure that valve cover is tight. So I think we're good there as far as the valve covers. I don't really think I need to replace the gaskets at this point. It seems to be holding up really well. On the body of the car, I haven't done a lot. I did go through the whole car with touch-up paint and touched up any stone chips and everything that I could find on it and make sure that it looked good from that perspective. And I've buffed the hood, the roof, and the deck lid and ceramic coated those. I haven't done the sides or the bumpers yet. That's yet to be done. I also ceramic coated the wheels before I put them on. I'm working my way through that. It's just not something I want to do on a hot summer day, is to, you know, sweat and buff the car out. I may get to do that before we put the car away for the winter, or I may not and do it in the spring. I don't know. But it's on the list of things to do. I'm sure as I own this car for a longer period of time, I'm going to find other things that it needs, and I'm probably going to have some type of issues with it. But that's just part of life of owning and driving an older car. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you know somebody else that loves Thunderbirds like I do, please share the video with them. We'd love to get as many people watching this channel as we can as I try to grow it. And until the next time, guys, enjoy your ride, and we will see you down the road. This is a really enjoyable car to drive. So one of the best things about this is that this is a car you could get into and drive for hours. So I was looking for a car that would be a good driver. So I'm really pleased that this one is. And now that the AC works, it's even better.